Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED. Pete Belcastro with you here today, and we are February 21 and 22 of 2015, and thanks for being with us as February rolls along. Boy, hasn't the weather... I mean, gosh, I have such mixed feelings about the weather. It's absolutely been gorgeous.
It's
but
so nice.
We don't have any snow. Someone told me today that Mount Shasta Ski Park there's no snow at the base. I mean, at the ski area, and none.
And Lake Shasta is not.
Well, Immigrant Lake,
came
up. Immigrant Lake came up quite a bit over the last rain that we had. I was just out there the other day. But it still has, as much as it came up, it still has a big old hole to fill with a whole lot of water that ain't around.
And it's not going to get around if we keep this up.
Anyway, but the weather, I have to say, has just been stunningly beautiful to walk out and be outside, and hope you're enjoying it. Well, anyway, today here on the Real Estate Show, the markets are always changing. That's one thing we've learned on our shows over the year when we get together with you, once a week to talk about all sorts of issues facing the whole real estate industry. And one of those is property management. And really, who better to talk about that than Laurel Adams? She's the co-owner of All Cities Property Management. She's also the past president of the Southern Oregon Rental Owners Association. And you're also since you've been doing our show, you've really expanded even to that. You're like a mediator, right?
Well, that and I do homeowners associations.
Right. Yeah. You manage homeowners associations.
Yeah. And Angela, who's basically the main owner at this time, she's going into mobile home parks. So we're opening up a whole new division.
Mobile home parks.
Yeah, that's an untapped source, and there's a need for it because they're a different set of rules. It's a different set of rules.
Different set of rules, like what? Just give me one. What would that be?
Well, there's a different set of rules as far as landlord-tenant because you basically are renting your spot, but you own the home that's on the spot.
Own the home on the spot.
So you're an owner and a renter.
Okay.
You're a dual.
Yeah, you own and you rent. Okay.
So the laws are stipulated to sort of cover both. So it's a whole nother set. So she's been studying that, and so she's really going to be quite good.
Is there a lot of, we haven't talked about manufactured homes in a while, but are there a lot of parks? Is there
Yes.
There really are when you start looking, isn't there? People may not realize how many thousands there are.
Don't quote me, but Angela told me, I think she said 114.
Different manufactured home parks?
In this valley.
No kidding, 114.
I believe that. Don't.
That
in
makes
fact,
sense.
You know what? I'll ask and I can report that next time.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
there's a lot of different
There's
places.
a lot of little ones, like a lot of 4s and 6s, and then there's lots of 20s and then 40s.
Are most of them organized already into homeowners associations?
Well, they don't have homeowners associations. They have an owner.
Okay. An owner of the park.
The owner of the park.
I see.
And then they have a park manager who usually either lives on site, or they have like a property management company who collects the rents and manages the rules and regulations for the mobile home park, which is similar to a homeowner association.
I see.
Different apples and oranges.
Totally different.
Totally
I was going
different.
to say that's totally different.
They're totally different. Yeah. They're nothing alike.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of exciting watching because we're changing.
Yeah.
We're changing too.
And there's a lot of parks are over 55. And,
and that's a whole set of rules.
Other parks are done, and they have their own rules
and
everything.
Rules.
And that housing, that type of rental housing or regular housing is certainly needed, isn't it, in our valley?
It's a catch-22. I'm aware of several 55 and older that I thought would, really rent and be great. And what happened is the owners of those facilities, of those housing developments, went and changed their CC&Rs and removed the 55 and older because they couldn't get them rented.
Couldn't get them rented? No
kidding. To the
kidding.
55 and older. Yeah. So here's the issue.
Wow. Okay.
It's
I've
really
not heard
simple.
that before.
So, this is one of my pet peeves. When you build 55 and older, you got to build for people who are getting Social Security, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, eventually, sure. Okay, yes.
Okay, we're going to think Social Security.
Right.
So what is the average? Do you know what the average Social Security check that a person in this day and age receives?
$800 a month?
Anywhere from $800 to $1,700 to $2,000 at the
range.
most.
Okay, sure. Okay? Yes.
Okay, so if that's all you have, because a lot of us baby boomers, we lost all our money, quote unquote.
Sure. Uh-huh.
So they lost all their investments in the stock market. They lost all, right? So now where are they? they're living on Social Security or very little investment money because they lost so much in all that and all the economy opportunities we've had over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't afford to pay $1,000 a month.
No.
And so there isn't housing that's been available for senior citizens, in my opinion, that meet the needs of the general group of population, which is the 700 to 900
that
max.
category.
That
and that's where as the boomers come through, and we're all in that age group, a lot of us.
And do you remember?
That's going to be the crunch. And this lifelong housing class that I was telling you about.
I was on
this
the
country.
Remember, I was on the Lifelong Council.
Okay,
I helped put that together.
Well,
so I was one of the members.
You was. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely that this country is not prepared.
We are not
for
prepared.
The housing crunch that's going to be caused by this.
Now, you don't remember, but you and I talked about 10 years ago. My husband was doing a project, and we had it all designed for 55 and older with cameras and everything, with which was going to be rent comp comparative, and the city of Medford wouldn't let us do it. They put all these restrictions, and we kept trying to explain to them that this is senior housing.
Yeah, absolutely.
This isn't to
housing.
sell. This isn't to make a lot of money. This is senior housing for individuals that have an income of anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month.
Uh-huh.
But they just they wouldn't do it. No, it was pathetic. It was pathetic.
We're talking, by the way, with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management today on the Real Estate Show. Of course, Laurel manages like tons of properties around. Do you have many manufactured homes? Are there many on the market? Or how does that work? Tell me. I mean,
in the past, I have not taken them on.
You have not taken them.
So we are just now opening up, and we're gearing up to for the forms. It's a different set of forms. The laws are different, so we are right now gearing up for that.
Wow. Well, it's going to be interesting to see as you go through this.
Oh yeah.
How that whole thing goes.
And
really,
Angela has managed a park before, so she has some experience.
Wow, that's going to be an interesting.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, to see how you're going to put all your skills together from mediation on down to get through this.
It's really, we're having a great time.
Well, there are. I mean, I think manufactured housing is the kind of it's always in the background. We never talk about it, and yet thousands of our citizens and our friends live in different parks and gorgeous places.
So we'll have Angela on to discuss that in the future.
Right. Well, good luck with that. Good. Now, tell us about the rental market itself in Jackson County. I think last time the last trend has been as it changes. So I know you came with some statistics again.
Right.
We talk about low inventories in the buying and selling, the residential market, how that's just dropped. Okay.
I think if I remember last month it was like 1.7. Well, we're hanging right in there at 2.0.
2.0.
So vacancy rate's 2.0. It's there's just isn't a lot available. I think right now I have 2 available properties.
Out of some 300 that you manage?
Over 300, yeah.
2 available?
Yep.
And what are the 2, just out of curiosity?
I knew, so you're going to ask me that, aren't you? Let's see. I think one is a 3-bedroom, and I think one is a 1-bedroom house.
Okay, yeah.
A little cottage house.
But just 2?
Just 2.
Have you?
And the phone rings off the hook.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, people are looking.
And
yeah.
And you tell them
I don't have anything. Our office, we are very helpful in helping people. We send them to other management companies. We send them to people. Our job is, of course, to make money and rent our own properties, but it's always good to help others find housing too, because you ought to hear the voices on the other end. I've called everywhere. Nobody has anything.
Yeah.
Nobody will take my cat. Nobody will take my dog. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, we hear it's a very common. And usually at the end of the conversation, I get thanked and say, thank you for, and I said, let me tell you what it's like. And so I kind of tell them what they're up against, and I give them some hints on things they need to look at.
And I'm sure they appreciate that.
And they appreciate that.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
And some of them, I tell them they have to get rid of their pets.
Yeah.
I said, you're not going to find a house or an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment for $500 or $600 a month that's going to take a Labrador Retriever.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you can. I'm not saying you won't be able to, but statistically, it's like, don't go there. Mm-hmm. It's just, you're really shopping for a 1 in a million. It's like looking for the needle in the haystack.
Yeah, well, today at the Builders Breakfast that I was at, one of the statistics they were showing was so many people after the recession, moved in with their parents.
They
The
did.
younger people, millennials, I guess, moved in
Yes.
with their parents, and the graph was quite interesting. And now they're starting to move out again.
Right.
And that group is coming into that. They rent first as this whole,
Right.
and there's millions of people. But they're renters first before they get into the buying market. So that's putting pressure on
It is.
the rental market, I would
is.
think.
It is. It is.
Yeah. And what else? I mean, and these people who are coming in things, coming from where? Are they still trying to move in here, or where are generally people who are calling you?
We're still
coming
getting
from?
a lot of out of state. In fact, right before I had to rush out the door to make this appointment with you because I was talking with someone out of state who's moving to Ashland, looking for a place to rent with a cat to decide if they want to be here permanently, to relocate.
I met a number of people who do that, actually.
And I had to have a little discussion about the cat and where to go to find housing that will take her cat, and that is primarily going to be college type housing, maybe, and maybe not the nicest. If she's used to having a really nice upper end house, it may be it's
not there,
especially for $900 a month.
I was going to say that's not going to get you much there.
So then you're talking about price.
Yeah.
So so I had to kind of educate her on Ashland and what's usual and customary for rent, what you can get. And then I sent her shopping on Craigslist.
Yeah. Well,
and showed her how to look.
We've been telling you, I know when Brad Bennington of the Home Builders is with us, Brad always likes to say, people are coming from out of state here to buy and build. And it's absolutely true. Do you know this is for the second year in a row, now 2013 and 2014, which state was the number one destination of new people in this country?
I don't know.
It's the state of Oregon.
Are you serious?
Seriously.
Now,
Oregon is
shocked.
number one.
But is it mainly Portland?
Well, that's when Nike announces they're going to have what I think they're going to have what 2,000 jobs at $100,000 each or whatever this was. I mean, yes, I believe they're going to Portland, but they're all still coming here. And we don't have, the jobs and the kind of things. We certainly don't have the housing right now for them as we're seeing.
Well, I do know that announced,
if your inventories are so low right now in rentals.
And everybody else's is low too.
And from a year ago, I think the statistic I heard today from, January of 2015 to January of 2014, inventory's down like 42%.
Right.
And
right.
So it's really coming to roost here. The only bright spot kind of in that area was new construction. There is a lot of that, quite a bit of that going on, which is hopefully going to, I guess, maybe alleviate that. But that's only if people who are going to buy the new houses are leaving their old ones and then either sell them or rent them.
But do we have new multiple housing going up?
Not much, no.
So we're not meeting that need.
No.
We're just meeting the single buyer need.
Well, we're going to see it. We've talked about this for quite some time. About we went so long without, and we're seeing the results of it with literally very few rentals available.
Yeah.
Housing is down to I think it was a 4 month supply, 3.5 month supply, which is really low.
Right.
And prices are going up. So that part makes that a seller's market. In the same way, it makes it a landlord's market, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And are you having pressure to raise prices, or are they kind of just steady? Our economy's not that good here, but is it keeping it level for price increases in rentals, or is that kind of holding its own?
The price has increased. I'm going to say across the board, probably $20 to $25 per unit, sometimes more.
Well, that parallels the median price of a sale of a house has increased 26% in the last 2 years. You see, and the rents are following along there.
Right. But like I said, the issue is you can raise and ask whatever rent you want. There's no law that says you can't ask a certain rent amount.
The market,
however,
supply and demand dictates what you get for it.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't get $1,000 for a 2-bedroom dump.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, now in Eugene, for instance, they get very high rents for not as nice a units. Can I put it that way?
Okay.
Because there's so many students, and they just rent to students, and there's more demand, and the students just kind of don't take as good a care maybe as
And all those,
we would
and
like.
most of those landlords just want them to pay the rent.
Yeah, they just pay the rent,
Okay.
and they just go in and fix what they have to fix.
We got a break coming up here. We're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management here on the Real Estate Show, and you want to talk about neighbors and neighborhoods,
Right?
And how that's kind of have an effect in the rental market, kind of thing. Is that right? I mean, really? I mean, I wouldn't think that. Well, neighborhoods, I can see that. Neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have all sorts of issues with neighbors, aren't we?
Oh, yes.
And I can imagine some of the issues that must. Do they call you? They're going to call the property manager when there's an issue on that.
Well, the law says that if a complaint comes in to a property manager or to an owner about a neighbor, about your tenant creating, behavior issues with the neighboring areas, you have the due diligence.
It's just if your tenant is creating the problem.
Yes.
I see what you mean by that.
So
Not necessarily you're
have,
complaining about somebody else. It's your tenant doing the problem.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Well, hold those thoughts because we'll come back and get more of those after our break here on The Real Estate Show. This show repeats at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning right here on AM 1440, FM 106.7. You can watch our shows at youtube.com/Real Estate Show Oregon. We're coming right back right after this. The Real Estate Show continues here on KMED, AM and FM this weekend, February 21st and 22nd. Pete Belcastro here with you. And we get together with you every week right here on KMED to talk about real estate-related issues. And boy, today we open a little can there with talking about property management again and what's going on with that. And 2% vacancy rate. We're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management. That's really low. I mean, that's even more. I talk about real estate inventory low. Really, the rental vacancy rate is lower.
It is.
I mean, by a considerable amount.
Yeah.
And I can see why people are having a difficult time trying to find, homes and properties.
And remember how we've talked about what are people looking for now? That we've had that conversation for years now. So remember when I kept saying I don't have enough of 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, then all I had was 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses, no 2 bedrooms, and nobody wanted the 3-bedroom. Everybody wanted the 2 bedrooms. It's just like
you can't win, can you?
You can't win. It's like it just goes in shifts. It is the funniest thing. Life is a crapshoot.
It is.
It's just a crapshoot.
Well, when we always talk about the market.
Yeah.
And market conditions or market dictator supply and demand, it truly does change all the time.
And you have to be prepared.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
When you're in the business.
I can feel for people though who are trying to locate rentals and can't find them and are frustrated and have to pay some of these fees that they don't get back from other property managers and stuff like that. I think that's way it's not fair and those kind of things as we see here. Well, neighbors, you said you want to talk about neighbors. I go okay, and then when you said. It's if you're the property manager and your client who is renting is causing a ruckus in the neighborhood or causing problems in the neighborhood.
Well, they
come to you.
Well, you're going to get two opportunities. Opportunity one says your tenant is not behaving in a manner upon which is a customary behavior for the neighborhood.
Okay,
so that's one.
Interesting.
That's one
verbiage. Okay.
Verbiage. Then you have the other part where it's just the opposite, where some other neighbor is harassing or doing something to your tenant.
Oh, somebody else?
Yes.
Say it again. Another renter?
Another renter from another unit that you don't manage or own is harassing your tenant.
Okay.
Or doing something to your property.
So those are the two ways that you would be involved as the manager. Okay.
And we've had once again, they come and go. But it is, it's become an issue, and I was reminded that it is our due diligence as a business owner, because if you have rental property, you are in business. We've talked about that before.
Whether you have one in your business,
if you have
smart,
one rental, you are a business owner.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, you are responsible for the behavior of not only what your tenant or the people living in your house are doing to others, but you're also responsible to help your tenant or person living in your house mitigate or feel safe
in their
house from other people.
Wow. Okay.
So you have to.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Did not know that.
You don't think about that, but if a neighbor were to, I'm going to
how would you resolve something like that as a property manager?
Well, mediation's a really good idea, but
But just getting in the middle of that kind
yeah.
of a dispute would just like make most people cringe.
Well, disputes can be as simple as garbage cans, cars, automobiles parking in front of their house.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you don't realize this, but the city streets belong to the city. And so you cannot tell your tenant they can't park somewhere
park in a public
because
street.
you don't have jurisdiction over city streets.
Right.
Okay. However, the neighbor across the street says your tenant parks in front of my house every day. And then my friends can't park or my children can't park their car on the street.
In front of my house. Uh-huh.
And then our tenant says, well, if you would take all the crap out of your garage, you could park your cars in the garage.
Okay.
And then that neighbor says, you can't tell me what to do. I own this property.
Uh-huh.
And then so you can see how this goes back and forth. Oh my
goodness, yeah.
And then someone keys.
And they're serious about it.
Oh, they're serious. And so then you have things like people taking a key and keying a car or kicking in a fender or doing damage to a car or egging a car. I mean, these are all things. And what happens is things led up to this. So what starts out as a little tiny issue, it percolates and percolates until it becomes
until
there's damage, until there's anger. So it usually ends in anger, disagreements, or damage to property.
Yeah. Wow.
So and that can come back on the owner. So if your tenant does something to the neighbor, or if the neighbor does something to the tenant, even though you, the owner, aren't responsible for the tenant's car that's parked across the street.
Right.
You are responsible to help your tenant mitigate and try to figure out how to create harmony with the neighbor.
Wow.
So you have to. So
how can it create harmony with my neighbor?
Yeah. So you write a letter, you make a phone call, and you do that. So the question is, how do you know who your neighbors are? Well, the first thing that I do, and I've always done since I started in 2002, the management company, is I have a neighbor letter. I have a neighbor letter. And my neighbor letter says, dear neighbor, I am the property manager at this and this and this address. Here's my phone number. Here's my email address. Here's my mailing address. Please don't hesitate to call me if there's any issues concerning that concern you about the property that I manage. Okay? And I hand it out. I post it on the doorways, 3 doorways across the street and the doorway on each side of that house.
Okay.
So that the people around me know,
everybody
it's
knows.
a rental and this is the company. Now, ironically, almost nobody leaves their name when they call.
Okay.
But
But they call.
They call.
Okay.
They email. They call and they leave a message at night. I don't know whether you know what you're doing, but that property at such and such address, there's drugs going on there, and if you don't, you better go check that out.
In your client, your renter.
Your renter. So I don't always know who it is, but I've always told my owners, your neighbors are your best friends. So on a new owner, like when you sell a property to an investment person, and that person contacts my office, the first thing I say to the owners is, meet your neighbors. Go introduce yourself to the neighbors because they are your best friends. They're actually better friends. They're going
to watch your house.
Oh,
they're going to let you know if something's wrong or whatever. You're right. That's true.
And
Very
they
true.
actually care more and will know more about your house than I do.
Yeah.
Because I can't be there 24/7. They are there. They're coming in and out. They're watching who's coming, who's going.
Absolutely.
The noise, the parties, the beer drinking, the marijuana smelling over the fence. They can, the dogs, the cats, they know it all.
The list just goes on.
Yeah, but I can't.
Yeah. No,
see, I have to give a 24-hour notice to go on the property. And by the time I give the 24 hours from the date I post that notice, everyth's been cleaned up. And so it's really hard for me.
I mean, it's all right. Yeah. You posted that and they cleaned it up.
So anyway, the point is that your neighbors are really important. So your neighbors can be a point of frustration. They can also be your best friend.
Yeah.
And so I'm encouraging rental owners out there. And by the way, we're at an all-time high for the Southern Oregon Rental Owners Association membership. We have 515 members. Isn't that amazing?
And most of these people are people who own rental properties, correct?
They're
invested in them and rent
they
them.
all own rental properties. Yeah. Most of the 515, I don't know exact percentage, but I'm going to say 80%, 85. Most of that, the 85% of those literally own 1, 2, 3, or
Right.
5 units.
And the things that you talk about here in terms of managing it, it applies to that person who has 1, 2, or 3 units, doesn't it? All this
Absolutely.
kind of
Absolutely.
stuff. If your tenant calls you being hassled or whatever, you got to do something. I mean, that's your job.
You have to be there. You have to be there to help them, meaning the tenant, negotiate their issues with neighbors. And at there every now and then there'll come a time when your tenant is creating disharmony, and you have to give them the warning notices. And we've talked about warning notices. And after 2 or 3 warning notices, it's time to ask them to leave.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is something will escalate to a point that's going to cost you a lot more than just simply asking them to leave.
Yeah, and this makes the total sense, and you gotta watch your investment, and that's what they hire you as a property manager to do, rather than do it yourself. People can do it themselves, and a lot of them are good at it. But
they are
515 members of that rental association. That's a lot of people.
That's right.
Owning a lot of properties that a lot of people live in. That's for sure. We're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management today on the Real Estate Show. Thanks for being with us. We got one more segment to go, and we're coming right back after this. Welcome to the Real Estate Show here on KMED this weekend, February 21st and 22nd. Next week, by the way, here on the show, we got another good show coming up. We'll check in on mortgage interest rates, which continue to baffle so many people. They continue to be in the 3s, if you can believe that still, after they went up and they came back down. And we'll see how long that goes. Guy Giles from Summit Funding will be along next weekend. 2 weeks from today, we'll check in with Brad Bennington of the Home Builders Association. And I'll tell you, this week I learned a lot about home building and the market of home building in Jackson County. There are a lot more lots out there than I could tell at the beginning of the show. There's a lot more lots out there throughout Jackson County in most places than I think I ever realized until this week. More than you think, but prices on them, are like most things, are going up a little bit as well. We're with Laurel Adams from All Cities Property Management here on the Real Estate Show today. And property management, we've learned today, 2% vacancy rate. That's really low. Prices and rents are that puts a lot of pressure on rents, as we know. We also want to talk about what happens if you have a tenant and they're causing trouble in the neighborhood. I never thought of that, actually, until you brought that up. And now when we talk about it, it makes perfect sense. I can see where that could really escalate, and that could really be problems for you as a property manager if you're doing it yourself or whatever. I can see that.
And we have like I said, we've had 2 just recently, what I refer to as special people. They have mental disabilities that you can't talk about or disclose information to neighbors or whatnot, and they create disturbances. And you have you have to go deal with the neighbors, but you can't tell them that there's something wrong with those people. You have to say, well, they have a dog because it's a special dog, and you have to go through all this stuff. So that's a whole other show.
Wow.
But nonetheless, so what do you do? I think the important thing for people to know is if your tenant calls you and you're the owner and they are having issues with another neighbor. You need to try to either help them, give them some guidance on how to maybe talk to them or call them or whatnot, or they need to write a letter, and they can find out who the owner is by going to Jackson County Front Counter and look up the address, and it will give you the property owner's name and the address to mail a letter to.
There you
go.
So
that's how you find out, and that's something everybody needs to know. It's open record. So you send a letter saying, we have concerns, and always send it polite. Don't send it with a negative aspect. Send it with, I'm having an issue and my tenant, this, and I'm wondering if there's something maybe we could get together or talk about some way that we could maybe have some kind of a solution so that, both our people that live in our homes could be happy.
Right, because that's the goal, is to get it resolved, not to grandstand or
scream and yell. Or do the blame thing. Doing the blame game's not going to work.
What about in the neighborhood? Oh, I was just talking about the look of a neighborhood. Well, because that's another. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I need to go back because if things escalate and you get another call from the tenant and the problem hasn't fixed itself or is getting worse, then you need to tell the tenant to call the police.
Right.
You can't call the police because you're not there on site. You have to tell your tenant to call the police. And if it's something concerning like a barking dog at 2:00 in the morning every night, so it's a noise disturbance. But if they're breaking an ordinance, if they're doing damage to your house, you really do have to put in a police report. And the police report is supposed to be confidential. Mm-hmm. But of course, probably the neighbor will know.
Pretty much public record, actually.
Well, yes and no. Okay. Yes and no. And sometimes what will happen is a tenant will call me and tell me things, and I will call in a police report. Okay. There's some instances when I can do that instead of them.
And that puts a record out there, right? I mean, it makes a record of it.
And that's really important that you establish a record because if you do have to evict your tenant or something happens and your tenant is harmed or physically beaten up or somehow their car is damaged and they come after you to fix it, you can show that you've done and did what you could to help solve the problem.
Solve the problem. Sometimes you can't solve them, but you have to show that you've made an attempt.
You have to show you've made an attempt. Yeah. If you tell a tenant it's your problem, don't worry about it, it's that you may lose. Yeah. You may lose big time.
Interesting. We're going to run out of time.
Okay,
the look of a neighborhood. Okay.
Yeah. It's always good to keep your garbage cans in, to keep the crap off the front of the house, like chairs, overstuffed chairs, couches that are made for the inside of the house, not the outside of the house. So when you create a pleasing look on the outside for your neighbors, they're going to respect you, and those neighbors are going to be more respectful of you and your tenants. So it's like you have to present a good picture in the neighborhood. And I think if neighborhoods need to get together and start cleaning up, if neighborhoods would clean up their act just block per block, then it'll increase your rent. People want to live on that street. Here's an example, 11th Street in Medford. If you go up and down the entire 11th Street of Medford, there's pockets. There are 3 different pockets. And there's a pocket where people want to live. Then there's this little pocket where nobody wants to live. And then another block they want to live. And another 2 blocks they don't want to live.
It's all because of
It's just because of the
way it looks.
The way it looks. Yeah. Exactly. So there, on one street, you can have 3 pockets.
Yeah.
And 3 different rental prices. 3 different rental
prices in the same thing. I also want to tell people that, I had a place that I listed, which listed a house across the street from my listing. It was a fork house that was abandoned.
Oh, yes.
And the yard absolutely was just, it was awful. There were broken windows. It was just a mess.
How are you going to sell a house?
Everybody who showed that house said the same thing. The people don't like that house across the street.
Yeah, that's right.
Oregon has a new law that you can call, say, the city.
When did that come?
I went into effect, I don't know, recently. I don't know that. But you can call like the city and complain about that.
That's code enforcement.
And the city will have that cleaned up. And they basically then put a lien on the property to be paid when it's sold. They couldn't do that before. They couldn't attach a lien to the property for cleanup. Now they can to get those, because some of those properties are horrible. I know.
I've seen them.
It's a mess. And it detracts from everybody.
There's another helpful thing for our landlords.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time here. How can you get a hold of Laurel? Because she's like, well, she can answer all your questions about rentals, that's for sure. And my goodness, it's a change. It changes every time I talk to you. There's something different, something interesting you got to understand and know about to manage property.
Well, the best way is to email and give us your phone number, and then we can call. Yeah. And the email address is rent, RENT, at allcities, ALLCITIES prop.com.
Allcitiesprop.com.
And then the phone number is the 541-245-8811.
All right. Well, good luck with the mobile home manufactured parks.
We're having a great time putting it together.
That's a nice expansion, and we wish I can't wait to hear some of the stories as you get involved with that as well. Well, that'll do it for the Real Estate Show this weekend here on KMED. Don't forget, next week we'll talk about mortgage interest lending here on the show. We also have a new TV show that's airing on RVTV, Charter Cable Channel 180 and Channel 9 in Ashland. That's a good show as well. You can also watch all of our shows, including our video shows, at youtube.com/Real Estate Show Oregon. Have a great week, everybody, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the original Real Estate Show with Pete Belcastro and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys. For advice, guidance, or counsel on any of our topics, or to watch a replay of today's show, visit our website at realestateshoworegon.com. This show is sponsored by RE/MAX, Ideal Brokers of Southern Oregon, Ticor Title, All Cities Property Management, and the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. We'll continue our weekly quest to enhance the value of your property and to make you a smart real estate consumer when we gather every Saturday and Sunday on KMED for the one and only original real estate show.